If you've ever stood in the shallow end of the ocean with your bare feet in the sand and your legs in the water, looking out into the waves, you've probably had the experience of everything being in motion. It never stops. No two waves are exactly the same. They're constantly being formed and spent and reformed again and again and again, rising and falling, building and crashing. If you stand in one place, the sand doesn't stay still beneath your feet. that keeps hollowing out underneath you as the streaming water carries it away. The ground you're standing on is being washed out from under you. The rug of sand is being pulled out from under your feet continually. And you look right and left, and the whole shoreline is moving and changing. It's being shaped and reshaped, being washed away and returned over and over and over again. I had the privilege of having this experience a couple times over the summer, just standing in the ocean, feeling the undulating all around me and wondering why I love this so much. It's just water. It's just sand. And when I look out, it's basically an expanse of nothingness as far as the eye can see. But I do love it, and I think most of us do. It taps into something so deep and primal, maybe from the days that the ocean was our home. When I was standing in the ocean one summer, it whispered a secret to me, which I'm going to share with you now with permission. The ocean said to me, "You see how I'm fluid? My waves and my sand, malleable, changeable, nothing fixed and solid. It's not just me, the ocean, that's like this. All of reality is like this. All of reality is like this." It's hard to believe that reality is that fluid and changeable, because when we're not at the ocean and when we look around, like in a room like this, it all seems very solid, right? The pews, the floor, the ceiling. These have been standing here in this spot for close to 100 years. But physics tells us that, in fact, that's an illusion. If you look at the back of the wooden pew in front of you, it looks solid, it feels solid, but it's made up of atoms. And each atom is a little cloud of swirling energy. And in the center of each cloud of swirling energy is the nucleus of the atom. But the nucleus is tiny compared to the space around it. It's like if my arm span were the whole atom, the nucleus would be the size of a grain of sand. Each atom is mostly space. The pew in front of you is mostly space. It looks solid, but it's not. You and I are mostly space. I mean, really, actually. Can you believe that? It's actually true. It's like that. We're not fixed and unchanging. We're changing all the time. As we grow older, we have different experiences. We become slightly different people every day, every minute. Did you know that almost every atom in our body is replaced every year? We shed, like dogs and cats shed. The molecules of our body are constantly drifting away and becoming something else or someone else. They say that every time we breathe, we're inhaling the breaths of everybody who's ever lived. We're inhaling the exhalations of our ancestors. And we're breathing the exhalations of lizards and squirrels and polar bears and naked mole rats, dinosaurs. This is actually happening right now. Can you feel the dinosaur breath as you breathe it in? It's a little bit humbling to realize that not just the ocean, but any water already contains the drops of all of the water that came before it. All water contains the past within it, contains molecules from every person, every part of the world, from crystal clear wells and dinosaur pee, from ancient clouds and the bottom of the ocean. It's all in there. Everything, quite literally, contains everything. Everyone contains everyone else. We're all in motion, swirling, shifting, changing, combining, separating, recombining, like the waves and the sand. If you've seen the movie The Matrix, you may remember a scene where the protagonist, Neo, is waiting for an audience with the Oracle. In the waiting room with him is a child who is bending a spoon using only his mind. When Neo stares in disbelief, the child hands him the spoon and explains, "Do not try to bend the spoon. That's impossible. Instead, only try to realize the truth. There is no spoon." In this sci-fi movie, there's no spoon because they're living in a virtual reality matrix. I don't believe that this world is virtual reality. It's not that this world is not real. It is real. It's just not solid. There's a spoon, but there's not a spoon in the way that we normally think about a spoon, as a shiny metal, hard-to-bend thing. It's less like a spoon and more like the ocean. All of reality is like this. Or, in more theistic terms from our prayer earlier, in God's goodness, every day God makes creation all over again. God hits the refresh button every single day on our world, populating our world with newness and potential. Why am I saying all of this? Because what if we actually believed it? What if we knew it? What if we could squint our eyes and see that not only is the material world fluid, but every situation in our lives that seems intractable, a difficult relationship with a loved one, social situations that seem frozen in place, polarized politics, poverty, all of it is being recreated every moment, like a standing wave continually regenerating in its current form, but absolutely not frozen in that form. We are collectively creating and recreating our reality, building and rebuilding our sandcastles. Imagine what we could do if we actually knew this. Many of us spend years, decades of our lives locked in patterns that don't serve us. We repeatedly play out these patterns of defensiveness, fear of intimacy, toxic partnerships. It's different for different people, but it usually comes from pain. And we feel frozen in those patterns. There's so much a part of us. We've been that way for so long, we can't imagine any other way. We get frozen in the big picture social scale as well. I'm thinking of our national politics these days, where each team imagines that the other team is fixed in their irrationality or their evilness or their stupidity or whatever it is that we think of each other. And we sometimes despair that nothing is ever going to change, nothing can change, because it's solid. I'm thinking also about the height of the pandemic, when a huge change was forced on us, and many of us longed for things to go back to the way that they had been. Even though some of us noticed during this time that the way things had been weren't so great to begin with for a lot of people. And even though they were catastrophic for the ecosystems that support life on this planet, even though we noticed how poverty made some people more likely than others to die from the same disease, even though some of us noticed how in our lives before we had been running an endless rat race, and it was exhausting and spiritually depleting, even though we noticed how quickly, when human activity paused, how quickly the rivers ran clean, the air became fresh, wild animals came back, the plants grew lush and green, nature reclaimed space with such giddy joy. Even though when we saw all of those things, and many of us said to each other, I don't want things to go back to the way things were, I want things to be different. Even so, we didn't really believe that things could be different. So, after the pandemic passed its crisis phase, we collectively scrambled to reestablish the reality that had been here before. The same relentless extraction from human workers and from the natural world. We've been reflexively recreating that world, rebuilding our same sandcastle over and over again. And the ocean is watching and shaking its aged head, saying, it doesn't have to be this way. It's not too late. It's never too late to remake your world differently. It's never too late to transform ourselves from the inside, because everything is like the sand and like the waves. All of reality is like this. It's the illusion of solidity that keeps it all in place. It's our belief that nothing can really change, that this is just life, just the way it is, the way it always has been, and the way it's always going to be, the way I've always been and the way I'm always going to be, that drives our actions and keeps it all regenerating. But in truth, we are mostly just space. And imagine what we could do if we knew this. The Beatles song, Within You, Without You, says, with our love, we could change the world if we only knew. If we only knew. With our love, we could change the world. It's my hope and my intention that in religious community we can practice this knowing, this deep knowing. We can practice seeing with the eyes of the ocean. Not that this world is not real, it's very real and very beautiful, but it's not solid. There is no spoon, and everything is being recreated right now as we sit here. I want to invite us all into a meditation to see if we can open our hearts and our imaginations to this message from the ocean. And after this meditation, we'll go directly into singing together our final hymn, which is number 350, The Ceaseless Flow of Endless Time. We can enter this meditation with our eyes open or closed, but let's get centered in our bodies and sit in a way that feels balanced and comfortable. And let's first conjure the ocean. We smell the salt, feel the breeze on our faces, along with the sounds in this room, maybe outside a little bit. We also hear the surging of the waves, the sizzle of the sand rolling in the surf, the sound of a child's voice, maybe the cry of some seagulls. The ocean is nearby. Maybe the ocean is even here, in this space. Maybe this sanctuary is a sandcastle, and we're inside of it. As we look around, we can see everything shimmering a little bit. The pews, and the pulpit, the floor, and every object shimmering, undulating. We look around in our mind's eye at the people of this community, and we see them with love as clouds of swirling energy. We also see those who have been here in the past, shimmering, filling this space. The sound of a child now, the sound of the children who have been here before. And maybe those who will be here in the future. Everything here is liquid. Everyone here is love. Imagine one thing we might do in our lives or in our world if we knew that all of reality is like this. Let's sit with this sensation for a few moments.